lesson objectives. So at the end of the lesson, you should be able to identify the different ideas in psychology about the self, create your own definition of the self based on the definitions from psychology, and analyze the effects of various factors identified in psychology in the formation of the self. In 1990, William James distinguished the two understandings of the self. So, the self as me and the self as I. So, what is I self? So, I self is the metaphysics, or basically, it is concerned with the existence of the self. So, I self refers to the self that knows who he or she is. A very good example for this are thinking, acting, and feeling self. In short, everything in your mind is the I self. It usually reflects the soul of a person, or what is now a thought of the mind, and it is called the pure ego. What is me self? So me self is the experience of the self. It is the empirical self. So it's about describing the person's personal experiences and further divided into subcategories. So like material self, social self, and spiritual self. Because of this, we are concerned about the experiences.
This video, I'm going to share of my explanation of me-self. The me is what is learned in interaction with others and with the environment. Other people's attitude once internalized in the self constitute the me. The I is the response of the individual to the attitude of the community. Example, according to Mead's theory, the self has two sides of face, me and I. The me is considered the socialized aspect of the individual. The me represents learned behaviors, attitude, and expectation of others and society. The I therefore can be considered the present and future phase of the self. The I represent the individual's identify based on response to the me. Thank you.
So what is the difference between I self and me self? So in I self, we are concerned about the existence of the self. It involves the thinking, acting, and feeling self. On the other hand, me self is concerned about the experience of the self. This is the empirical. So that is the difference between I self and the me self.
Good day everyone, I'm John Paul Saba and today I'm gonna discuss about my topic, global and differentiated models. So first, global self. As what Cadet Casahoras explained, global self refers to the general value that a person bases on themselves. So to say, this topic focuses on yourself or oneself. So it focuses on the value and the worth of a person or yourself. For example, you want to be a good dancer, so you work hard and practice more and focus on self improvements so that you can become a good dancer. So that's for global self. Now I'm going to discuss the differentiated model or the differentiated self. So first, differentiated self. It refers to your ability to separate your own feelings and thoughts from others. So it doesn't focus on yourself anymore. So you have to balance your feelings or thoughts for yourself and your feelings or thoughts for others. So, differentiated self includes the process of defining self, revealing, revealing yourself, and managing your potential for yourself. So, differentiated self is not only about yourself, so it focuses on yourself, but you also focuses on others, but not totally. You just you just value your decisions or your thoughts and feelings for yourself than people's thoughts about you. So, as what I have understood in this topic, self differentiation involves being able to possess and identify your own thoughts and feelings and distinguish them from others. It's a process of not losing connection to self while holding a deep connection to others, including those you love whose views may differ from you. That's all, and thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, classmates. My name is Justin Enrique Casahoras, and I am here to report about global self. So, our objective for today is to understand how global self is identified. So, global self, it refers to how a person generally values his or herself. It is generalized feelings of self-worth, which is not specific to a particular situation, but which apply to many activities or areas of life and predispose the subject to view new activities in particular ways. So, ang sabutan niya is the general perception of a person's value. So, the word general means common, overall, or broad. Example ka lang. Ito was a general goods store. Then, ang naangat sa general goods stores, mga daily necessities siya. So, dili siya specific. General. So, global self, it doesn't mean just a specific area of life. Remember, dili siya specific area of life. It may apply to everything or anything you do. For example, kanang happy-go-lucky person ka, then imong attitude katag adlaw or everyday is happy ka, pero ni bisag napakay assignments or napakay problems, you're just happy. So, happy-go-lucky person, so that is your general self. Then, kung kuan ka, example, opposite, if you are grumpy ka all the time, even though there's problems, signapay happy events, or sigan sa grumpy jud ka. So, general meaning jud ni mga kuan ka, grumpy jud ka, pero
Good day, guys. I am Cadet Baring, and I am from Group 5, and I am here to discuss ideal self and real life or real self. So, first, what is ideal life? Or ideal self. So, ideal self is a visionary who dream almost everything in life to make a person happy or to make us happy. It is also what our guardians have instructed us. It is also what we appreciate in others. It is also what our society advises us. And the most important thing is we can see this all day in social media. Ideal life or ideal self is one of every person has in mind and wants to who they become. They have dreams which may be fulfilled or depending on the circumstances prevailing. The best example for this is we teenager. Why? Because we teenagers have a lot of goals in life, especially when we came in an average family.
Hi, good day. I'm Cadet Espinedo. I'm going to discuss about multiple selves versus unified self. You might be wondering what is multiple self, what is unified self, and what's different between the two. Now, let's talk about the multiple selves. When you hear multiple, you may think of many, right? Multiple selves or multiple personas refers to the different ways that individuals interact with the different situations and circumstances in their lives. The multiple selves originate from the inner experiences created by the infant as a result of its interactions with its mother and later others. For example, a person takes on these different styles of interactions as a parent, as an employee, as a friend, as a son or daughter, or a spouse. So, multiple selves is the different ways of interacting with other people. It said here that it is inborn, so it depends on what role you have. For example, as a son to your mother, or as a daughter to your father. Multiple selves is also described as how people see you. Let me give you an example. Let's think of scenario. Me helping my mother in public space. Other people would think that she's my mother because they see me in interacting with my mom in a different way of how I interact with other people. Now, let's talk about unified self. Unified self is a means of referring to the composite persona or to the self that includes all of the other personalities that exist within a person's interactional manner. The self is sometimes understood as a unified being essentially connected to consciousness, awareness, and agency. Agency. The sense of agency or sense of control is the subjective awareness of initiating, executing, and controlling one's own volitional actions in the world. Consciousness refers to your individual awareness of your unique thoughts and memories, feelings, sensations, and environment. Ownership. The self is the owner of the body. Feelings, thoughts, etc. ownership. And agency work together to help make the self. Now, let's move on to the key points of my topic about multiple selves versus unified selves. Multiple selves refers to the different ways that individuals interact with the different situations and circumstances in their lives. Multiple selves is also described as how people see you by how you interact with other people. Unified self is a means of referring to the composite persona or to the self that includes all of the other personalities that exist within a person in interactional manner. Unified self is sometimes understood as a being essentially connected to consciousness, awareness, and agency. That's all about my topic. Multiple selves versus unified self. Thank you for listening.
And for to this video, I will explain you what is true self and false self. So, the true self and false self are a psychological concept originally introduced into a psychoanalysis in 1960 by Donald Winnicott. Winnicott used true self to describe a sense of a self-based and spontaneous authentic experience and a feeling of being alive, having a real self. So true self, start with yourself. Being authentic begins with being honest with yourself about what you really think and what you really feel. So true self is a grounded ego, living in the true reality of the present moment. Also, a soulful understanding of oneness. Respond with compassion. Your thoughts will follow your initiative heart. The true self comes from the initiative hearted with compassion. Therefore, you will have a profound connection to the universe. So, false self. False self is a real-life example of a false self are based around a certain belief that we take on in order to fit in the world better. So the false self is an undergrounded ego, living a created illusion over the past and future. So the false self existing in the illusion of us versus him, and reacts in a fear, afflictive emotion, and repression. Also, security energy center the fear of having to acquire more and more, silly to suffer from amority of losing it all. So the full self are the fear of constantly seeking affection, esteem, and status. Addiction lives here. Power energy center of the full self is the fear of trying to control and manipulate events of people that causes conflict, jealousy, and hostility. The full self controls thoughts with affective emotion. The false doesn't listen to your initiative heart. Therefore, there's no connection to the universe. And that's all. Thank you.
Good day everyone, this is Admiral Lewasana. I'm here to tackle about true self versus full self and the self as proactive and agentic. When we say true self, it is also known as real self, original self, authentic self, and vulnerable self. It is who we actually are. True self refers to a sense of self based on authentic experiences and the feeling of being truly and present and alive. For example, while working, a person is also spend his time with his family because his job is just something to do, but for him, as the important is he have his family, and that is his belonging. True self, it is who you actually are. It is something that is belongs to you. For full self is a defensive facade behind which a person can feel empty. Its behavior is being learned and controlled rather than spontaneous and genuine. Full self, it is also known as fake self, ideal self. A full self, for example, having beliefs in order to fit into environments better. For example, a woman thinks that she is pretty. She imagined that, but in real, she is not pretty as she thought. She just imagined that thing because she just want to be attractive to boys. Differentiate true self from full self. True self is represented by real feelings and desires, while full self is a side of us that has changed its behavior, repressed feelings, and push needs aside in order to survive. The self as proactive and agentic. Proactive or proactivity is a behavior to self-initiative behaviors that endeavors to solve a problem before it has occurred. Proactive behavior is capable of thinking in advance of a future situation rather than reacting after it has occurred. Let's say proactive person, for example, if you don't want to have failing grades after examination, then you must have to think positive. So you have to study before the examination comes. Agentic self is defined as the aspects of a human personality that is determined by the future assessments of one's goals, objectives, and actions. A unified agentic self is composed of different cognitive components that influence the overall personality and the future aspirations of an individual.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on